How to prosper post-pandemic. I get a couple questions, not a lot because most people aren't thinking this way, about how to quickly recover your electrical contracting business after this pandemic is over with. Hey, I'm Justin Hitt with Commercial Electrical Profits. The question comes, will your hurricane marketing or disaster plan marketing system work post-COVID-19? Will it help me be able to get the business going again and get cash flow back to normal? Will it help me get my office where it needs to be to deliver and serve customers? Well, the answer is yes. First off, you've got to understand that even a global pandemic has limited impact on your local region. It is entirely possible you're in an open state that allows you to transport normally. You want to make sure that you're protecting your staff and your customers because your technicians will be a transmission vector for the COVID-19 if one of your technicians should get COVID. Now, what we see by the current cases about the warehouses that opened up and when the COVID happened there's actually a liability suit against the company itself. You want to make sure that you have in place what's necessary to prevent a liability issue should one of your employees get COVID from being out working or transmit COVID from having it and not knowing it. So the same concept works of setting up a command station, making sure that not only your customers are taken care of, and that could be advocacy around testing centers, or making sure your employees are taken care of by how you manage your back office. Now, there's also aspects of, will your people come back to work? Most of those who come to me and inquire about the services that we provide are $1 million plus electrical contractors that are teetering on that $1 million. You know, they want to get to 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. And they have small back offices, but they often have waged workers that are lower than $18 an hour. Now listen carefully. A lot of folks are getting laid off and they're taking the government benefits, which total about $12.50 an hour up to $15 an hour, depending on where you are. If you can't currently pay your employees that much, the perception in the employee's mind is that they're going to get more money staying home, and plus they can do all these other wonderful things as well as catch up on videos, and they'll be safe. The truth of it is those folks taking unemployment right now will have to pay taxes on that money, and they will not be really receiving $15 an hour. Sure, they're getting a $2,000 check from the government. They're getting a $600 extra in their unemployment check, but it doesn't equate to long-term income, especially if they have no company to come back to. So you as the owner probably understand this, but there are concepts that we talk about in the hurricane marketing system, in the disaster system, that can help you prosper post-pandemic. The key here is that you want to take care of your people. You want to take care of first responders, you want to take care of your customers, and you want to build out a system, a local system of prosperity. You want to build a local safe system that is COVID-free. You want to build a local safe system that also addresses the other known issues that happen seasonally, like, for example, seasonal flu, depression, alcoholism, all these issues that are actually killing more people than COVID need to be addressed and advocated in your local community in order to gain the opportunity to be in front of customers when you can't physically be in front of customers. So like a hurricane or a natural disaster, you may not be able to physically go out and serve customers. But you can use advocacy, for example. You can share quality information about hand washing. You can share quality information about the use of masks. Did you know a healthy person using a mask increases their chance of getting a viral infection or some kind of lung-related infection by nearly 50%? And it's mainly because the typical person does not know how to use a respirator or a mask the proper way. And what happens is it builds up moisture, and that moisture becomes an environment for viral infections. And they're also, they touch the mask when they drink. They put the mask on and off when they get out of the vehicle. They might be coughing in the mask. There's a number of factors that make wearing a mask not the best solution for healthy people. Now, the conditions are different when you have someone who is sick and self-quarantining who may be coughing in the mask, but that mask is then either disposed of properly or, in this case of cloth masks, it is washed daily. And by the way, the cloth mask recommendations that the CDC and other people have made, if you read the fine print, it is for daily use, but it is for, it gets washed. You use it one day and you're done. You don't touch it, take it on and off a bunch of times. If you have to be out in public, you can wear it and be done with it. If you're sick, wearing a mask protects other people, which is very important. But we know today that even surgical masks and N95 masks do not keep out all viruses if they're used improperly. Remember, a surgical mask is for the duration of the surgery, not all day or 24-hour use. And if you're wearing the same mask day after day, it is going to be a problem. So what I just shared with you right there is on the CDC website, the Center for Disease Control's website, and it's readily available in official sources. However, you'll never see that on a newspaper. And because you're not going to see it in the mainstream media, you're going to have the situation where your customers are going to be afraid to have your contractor come out there or your technician come out there and even talk about a job. And when it comes to electrical jobs, people aren't, if an outlet doesn't work for a couple months, they're not really going to be upset. See, you could be losing your low-end residential customers right now as we speak because you haven't had a way to stay in front of them and they're terrified to call you. So how do you prosper post-pandemic? Well, first off, it's keeping your marketing consistent and going during the campaign, during the pandemic, but not necessarily calling them to action because they're not going to come to your location. They're not going to invite someone to their home or location. But again, you could help alleviate fear with good quality information, and you can also advocate for the individual. So right now in many states, there are people concerned about the civil liberties associated with a government-imposed stay-at-home order. Now, when a governor does an executive order, it's not necessarily law. It's enforceable as law under certain conditions, but ultimately forcing people to stay in their homes like China did, welding doors shut and forcing them in their home is not a welcome thing in the United States. So if you want to go that channel of advocacy, you can start working with and supporting groups that are being more rational about this condition. By the way, COVID-19 is real. It has a high transmission rate, but it doesn't have as high of a death rate as we originally thought it did. And this is how this stuff works. You take over precaution up front and you get to understand the problem. And then based on the understanding of the problem, you adjust your behavior. The challenge with governments in a disaster situation, in a pandemic situation, is that now we're starting to work into the individual goals and objectives of the political figures. Now, remember, I talk about the strategic relationships. You want long-term customers with quality and loyal relationships. So this isn't about what we do today. We're not going to have more compelling copy so that they call and a technician runs out there and it does an assessment of their site and maybe they're going to rewire a breaker. All this kind of stuff is not an immediate call to action, but you do need to stay in front of your customers so that they are aware. In fact, I've had some electrical work done on my house since March when the stay-at-home order started with a trusted contractor who came in and did the installations away from my family. So they came in, they wore a mask, they wore it properly. We certified in advance that they were actually had a plumber out too. We knew in advance that they were clear. They didn't have anything. In fact, their contracting company has figured out a way to get testing to the folks early. They did the work, they left, everybody's fine. That's been more than 30 days ago. There are no issues associated with it. So you can still service your commercial accounts. This is the perfect time that if someone's got an empty office building, that all of their electrical work gets taken care of. Because you can send your guys to a empty building and they can maintain social distancing, and which if one person's on one end of a wire run and somebody's on the other end of a wire run is very easy to do. But ultimately, you have to now segment your marketplace. Now, I go into more details in the actual program, Prosper After the Pandemic, where we talk about how many customers will use this as an excuse not to pay you. But there will be also customers that are desperate for something right now. For example, generator services. What would make a pandemic worse than a generator failure? Now, I know a lot of the hospitals are empty now, and there was a concern earlier. And if you hadn't got in earlier, you might have missed a window. But these windows come every season. By the way, hurricane season is coming. But a hospital, what could be worse than the public humility of a generator failure during a storm during the pandemic? See, and that's a job you might be able to do. It's outside, it's away from people, and it's in a condition where you could have one or two technicians out there and just get the job done. So you may lose a lot of your residential services. However, huge opportunity here for your commercial side. If a factory shut down, great time to rewire and set up for their new factory line. Maybe they're transitioning from what they normally manufacture to now personal protective gear, and you're able to get in there when the building is empty and get things taken care of. Now let's talk about your back office. Your back office can be virtual. Now, I know a lot of you folks like to have people in the office because when you have lower wage people, it's easier to manage them. But your bookkeeping, your marketing, your procurement, those folks can work in somewhat of an isolated state. So they can come into the office and not interact with each other. They can also work remotely. But what about taking this as an opportunity to look at how you can streamline the process so that folks can work more efficiently, safer, and still get the work done? So here's what's important here. An example of that is in your procurement process. Have you scanned all your vendor contracts? Are those vendor contracts readily available in your accounting system? And by the way, even QuickBooks will let you scan a contract and put it with an account so that when your bookkeeper looks through things or your CPA looks through things, they got all the materials in one place. Are you in a position where the workflow is easy and streamlined so that you can approve purchase decisions? And this can be done over email, but email kind of gets mixed up. So are you using a back office platform that would allow you to put this in a project folder and then go into the project folder, make your approvals, and all the documents are in the right place? Are you currently working with paper sheets that you walk around and people on a paper sheet? Well, you can still do the paper sheet, but you can scan the sheet, put it in a file to be shredded, and ultimately have that scanned document in your system to work with. It's very important to keep these things together because you may have a extended liability concern due to the viral pandemic that you would not otherwise have. And then you also could, again, have customers decide they're not going to pay. You could have critical infrastructure that's not being repaired because there's a concern that they're not able to do that. So when a customer tells you or a prospect tells you, hey, look, we're not going to get that taken care of right now, we've got other budget concerns, do you have a system in place to follow up? Many of your competitors and vendors are actually going to be very confused, and it's going to be hard to get materials. But guess what? You can go through your warehouse right now. You can go through all your inventory right now and start packaging special campaigns that are targeted to individuals to liquidate your inventory. Now, you're going to keep items for your emergency services, but ultimately, can you reduce your inventory to improve your cash flow? Now, there's other administrative elements here, such as the PPP, for paycheck and payroll coverage. There's some of these SBA things that are coming and going. Do you have the administrative staff in place that intelligently understand how to access those funds? So we're going to talk about all this and more, how to prosper post-pandemic. But I believe that the disaster marketing plan that I've shared with in the past, and we've done many programs, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Harvey, we've talked about this for years. This is a program that is built on 10 to 15 years of practical experience. It starts right now. You don't wait till after the pandemic to start getting your stuff in order. Right now, as you have a critical look at your business, is this business serving you the way it needs to serve you? If this business is not cash flowing the way you need it to cash flow, and you can't immediately have a plan in place in writing that gets you from where you are to where you want to be, then this is the perfect time to close the business. This might be the perfect time to acquire other businesses. There might be someone in a nearby market who is struggling right now, who, if they had your leadership, if they had your insights, if they had your ability to manage an organization, because maybe you are cash flowing very well, much better when the economy is doing strong, but you have listened to the programs that we share and you're cash flowing very strong, you might be able to use some of this funding that's available, whether it's state, federal, or local funding, to buy out a competitor in another marketplace so that post-pandemic, you're not only growing with one business, but you're now growing with a network of businesses that boost your productivity. What about product specialization? This might be the time to specialize in products and services that you can deliver right now while setting up the marketplace by building customer lists and relationships so that you can set up the marketplace so that post-pandemic you can get the results. And finally, this is time to be talking about advocacy and charity. Okay, I know your business is not a charity, but we talk about this in detail in our charitable marketing system, is that you can leverage this opportunity to get the right message out about who your business really is. Who are you really today? Are you a patriot? Are you a communist? Are you somebody who wants to see the community grow? Now you can have a platform. People are going to be more comfortable doing webinars and watching videos. You can actually have a platform, and I got a couple great examples in my region where they've got online and they're taking a stance about helping the elderly. Do you know most of the COVID deaths have been in convalescent homes? Nursing homes. Those people are vulnerable because they first don't have the services, and very often they are seen as a line item in some kind of insurance scheme. My point being is it doesn't matter what your advocacy is. Now is the opportunity to leverage that advocacy so that you can be in front of customers with a meaningful message. If you're driving a sales push right now, there's too much fear. You may not have anyone who would take that, especially on the residential side. But you can drive hard that sales pitch on the commercial side because there are property managers with empty buildings, and this is the perfect time to get in and do those updates, to get that new lighting in, to get the new installation going. But remember, again, your supply chain's messed up, so you might have trouble getting in materials for installation, so you have to build that into your project. I could go on through this for 3 days. And in fact, if you're interested, I'd be happy to do a 3-day virtual seminar going into every detail about how to prosper post-pandemic. It's going to include insights that you can use right now to start improving your cash flow, to retain valuable employees, to maybe even pick up a few more technicians from the marketplace, and even find opportunities to accelerate your business growth to go from 1 million to 2 million to 10 million or more. And you're going to learn from practical insights that we've used for more than 15 years in a variety of business development cases. So, for example, the business process optimization that I described with procurement, we've got models for project management, we've got models for your dispatch, and you don't necessarily need a fancy system. I know companies are right now pitching software like crazy, but this might not be the time to get into a contract that's an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Now, your subscription to the software, by the way, may only be $1,000. But it's the environment wrapped around that software. It's the plugins. It's the required hardware that is going to cost you $5,000 or so a month that you don't necessarily need to be spending right now, and you can invest in that customer. Do you know how much it costs to buy a customer? Maybe you can buy some more customers right now. Do you know what it costs to buy goodwill and that stimulate that word of mouth in your marketplace? Well, that might be a better investment. There are a number of things that you can do that we'll discuss in a program if you're interested. Or you can just simply contact me at www.commercialelectricalprofits.com and ask your questions. This is a very important question that folks have been asking. Again, not a lot of folks have been asking because they've got that fear mindset. They haven't been thinking about how can we profit from this. And they may even feel guilty profiting from a pandemic. But again, the whole world could be aflame. But what really matters is what's happening in your community, what's happening with your family, what's happening with your employees, what's happening with your employees. And you can actually make a huge difference in that with the right plan. So if you have questions about that plan, maybe you have questions about some of the things that I've covered here, you're going to visit www.commercialelectricalprofits.com. Just leave me a message there. We'll get back with you. But the key to understand here, and you got to take this away, is that you're not a victim. And in fact, you can come out as a hero, as a victorious hero, just by some simple preparedness exercises, from some simple structuring of your organization, from some simple advocacy and organizational methods, and by marketing this designed to build customer relationships and transform them into profits guaranteed. I'm Justin Hitt with Commercial Electrical Profits. Keep the questions coming in. Thanks for listening, and you can get all details and more at www.commercialelectricalprofits.com. commercialelectricalprofits.com. Thanks for listening.